My name is Parker Montgomery, and today for my oral research presentation, I'm going to be talking about civil rights. And the two individuals I have chosen to talk about are Malcolm X and Bobby Seale. And along with those two individuals, the two associations I've chosen to talk about will be Jim Crow laws and Plessy versus Ferguson, as well as NAACP, or National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. I would like to begin by talking about Malcolm X. Malcolm X was born Malcolm Little on May 19th, 1925, in Omaha, Nebraska. Malcolm X was an influential member of the Nation of Islam, which that is very cool. I did not know that. That is something that you don't really learn about Malcolm X, is that he was also a big part of Islam and that religion. So that's very cool. And obviously, he also was a big leader and contributed greatly to the black civil rights movement. His father was a Baptist preacher who died when Malcolm was about 6 years old, so when he was very young. And um, after that, dealing with all the stress and helping, trying to raise the kids, Malcolm's mom was actually sent to a mental hospital, which left Malcolm and his siblings to be in and out of foster cares and live with different family members and such like that. Malcolm always did do well in school, but after receiving some negative feedback from a teacher, um, he actually quit going to school. He lost interest and just stopped going. Um, After that, he moved um, roughly everywhere, in and out with different family members, aunts, uncles, cousins. Um, and at that point, he wasn't in school, so he had a lot of free time, um, just being out on the street. He got into, gang violence and drug dealing and stuff like that to help make ends meet and stuff. After Malcolm was caught for a robbery and he spent some time in prison, this is when he actually found the religion of Islam, and he stopped all his mischievous ways and bad habits, and ended up changing his diet, not eating pork, and um, you know, going by the religion's rules. Now, his ideas and the way he went about things were not at all mainstream within the civil rights movement. Malcolm was a strong supporter of encouraging black individuals to defend themselves by any means necessary. Um, so this went against many, leaders at the time, such as Martin Luther King or numerous others, on how they went about things in a more peaceful manner. Um, so the next person I would like to talk about is Bobby Seale. And Bobby was most known for actually starting the Black Panther Party along with Huey P. Newton. And like Malcolm X, this is probably the biggest similarity I can find between them, is that Seale tended to take violent approaches to gain civil rights. So he, as well as Malcolm, took more of a violent approach than a peaceful approach. Um, his radical support for the movement really first sparked when he actually heard Malcolm X speak, which is actually really cool as well. That's um, sort of helped him inspire to, you know, start the Black Panther Party, which um, Seale, with the Black Panther Party, did a lot of things. They opened medical clinics, provided breakfast for school children, and started many programs within their community. In 1971, Seale was actually tried for a murder of a fellow Black Panther who was thought to be a police informer. Um, and in prison, just like Malcolm, he sort of had a change of heart. He became a lot more peaceful and no longer supported violence. After his release from prison, he would eventually run for mayor of Oakland, California, but ended up coming in second. Uh, and that's when he took on more of a quieter role and started writing books and publishing books. So, like I said, the biggest similarities I can really say between Malcolm X and Bobby Seale would be that they took more violent approaches and had more violent tendencies towards the civil rights movement. But they also both went to prison and sort of had a change of heart almost in a sense and uh, changed their ways to be more peaceful. So now we're going to be transitioning into the associations. So um, the first one I'm really going to talk about is Jim Crow laws and Plessy versus Ferguson. So after the Civil War, the right to vote and certain other rights were granted to black citizens, but white supremacists eventually regained control of the Southern government and created laws in place to oppress blacks again. It seemed to be a loop that they were trying to keep everyone in to where we couldn't get anywhere. This transitions us into more issues within the legality with separate but equal by going into Plessy versus Ferguson. Homer Plessy was sitting in a white only section on a train car in New Orleans. Plessy was only an eighth black, which by Louisiana law at the time he would only be viewed and or considered as a black man. So he refused to leave the train car after asked to, and this case actually went to court to trial. Sadly, the ruling was that separate but equal is somehow fair, and this escalated to even more segregation laws called Jim Crow laws, which made schools and theaters and restaurants and, of course, transportation, as we done sort of talked about, made them all segregated and found like loopholes almost to where blacks couldn't have the same rights as whites. They also were put in literacy requirements, and they were put in place to keep blacks from voting. Um, so now talking about the NAACP, or National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and it was created in 1909 to help acts of segregation or discrimination in housing, employment, education, voting, and transportation. Their main purpose is to ensure black citizens' constitutional rights are there upheld. Some famous names behind the creation of this organization are Webb Du Bois, Ida Bell Wells Barnett, Mary White Ovington, and many more. In 1910, they began publishing The Crisis, which played a huge part in help persuading people's opinion. um, and the NAACP helped with many public/social issues like helping Woodrow Wilson denounce lynching, enacting civil rights laws that helped protect discrimination of colored people, education programs, and sort of gained more morale and more support for the cause. So in 1939, I thought this was really interesting, the NAACP started also providing independent legal arm for the civil rights movement, and they helped win the Brown versus Board of Education case, which was the catalyst for desegregation in numerous ways. So I would really have to say the biggest um, similarities between those two would be that Jim Crow and and Plessy versus Ferguson, excuse me, and the NAACP would be that the NAACP was in place to fight against stuff like the Jim Crow laws and, um, help win cases. And maybe if they would have had more support, they would have been able to help in the Plessy versus Ferguson case. Um, so this is I'm not much of an artist, but this is what I've got, and this is Malcolm's autobiography that he did. I did the cover of it as best as I could. I did kind of like a silhouette, and then this is the NAACP logo. Um, so I just kind of I tried to paint this the best that I could, and try and make it look as good as possible. But I'm not the best artist, like I said. But really, that has been my oral research presentation, and I really did learn a lot. And thank you for watching.